Serial killers really are stuff of nightmares. But do you actually think you know all of them? In this episode, we're going to look at 5 of the world's worst serial killers you didn't know about. Be sure to stick around for the last one because his story will truly shock you. Dorothea Puente, or the Boardinghouse Killer, was the proprietor of a boarding house in Sacramento, California during the 1980s. Her first victim was a friend who stayed in the house until Dorothy poisoned her. The police ruled it a suicide and Dorothy would try again with an elderly man. But this attempt failed and sent her to jail for 5 years, during which time she made a pen pal. The correspondence eventually turned to love, and upon her release from jail, the two moved in together. But Dorothy later murdered him, dumped his body and claimed his pension for years. Dorothy would take in elderly and disabled tenants to her home. She would read their mail and take any checks she found. She would give them small amounts of money but keep the rest, claiming it was for the upkeep of the house. In 1988, a tenant was reported missing by a social worker. Police attended the boarding house and noticed some recently disturbed soil. This uncovered the bodies of 7 people. Initially, 60-year-old Dorothy was not a suspect. She fled to Los Angeles but was then arrested and charged with 9 murders. She was only convicted of 3 of the murders and sentenced to 2 life sentences. She died in prison in 2011. David Parker Ray, or the Toy Box Killer, was a resident of Elephant Butte, New Mexico. He is known for what he called his toy box. This was essentially a soundproof trailer in his backyard which he converted to a torture chamber. He would lure and drug his young female victims and place them there. Once inside, he would strap them down and play an audio tape which explained what they were to endure. With his daughter and girlfriend as accomplices, he would then commit unspeakable horrors by torturing these girls for days before killing them and disposing of their bodies at an unknown location. He was only discovered in 1999 when a young woman managed to escape when David's girlfriend Cindy Hendy accidentally left some keys out. The woman told police, who soon matched her story with a similar one to that of a local resident who was released by David after being drugged. David kept a diary, including drawings and some photographs, which led police to suspect him of around 50 murders. He was arrested and with the assistance of Cindy and one of David's friends, he was charged. He pled guilty and was sentenced to 224 years. However, he died of a heart attack in 2002 before authorities could confirm any of the other suspected cases. Nannie Doss, or the Giggling Granny, was born in 1905. She married when she was just 16 and had 4 children. 2 of these children died suspiciously and she soon divorced her husband, taking her 2 remaining children with her. She would then remarry, and during this time her daughters had children themselves. She didn't like her grandchildren much. She's believed to have killed her newborn grandson with a hat pin, and on another occasion strangled her other grandson to death. Both were ruled accidental and Nannie collected the insurance money. Not long after this, she killed her second husband with rat poison in his whiskey. She found her third husband in a Lonely Hearts column, marrying him within days of meeting. He died of a suspected heart failure, and their house burnt down with Nannie taking the insurance money. His mother also died in her sleep around this time. Nannie went on to live with her bedridden sister, who died soon after Nannie moved in. She then went on to marry again for a 4th time, and when her mother came to live with her, Nannie killed her and her 4th husband. Nannie remarried for a 5th and final time. She killed her last husband in a manner which raised suspicions with his treating doctor. An autopsy revealed arsenic poisoning, and Nannie was arrested. She's believed to have killed 11 people in total. During her confession, she was smiling and giggling. She died in jail of leukemia in 1965. Have you heard of any of these serial killers? Let us know in the comments section down below. John Edward Robinson, or the Slave Master, a resident of Kansas, he is known as the first serial killer to have used internet chat rooms to find his victims. In his early years, he created fake companies and was convicted of fraud offences. But in his 40s, he began working as a Sunday school teacher and scoutmaster. However, this was all an act. Several local women were propositioned by him, where he talked about his love of sadomasochism. During this time, he hired a young woman to work at another one of his fake companies. When she disappeared, her family came to him, where he provided a fake note telling them she didn't want to see them anymore. He then murdered a local mother and gave her 4-month-old daughter to his brother for adoption. This is when he went online in chat rooms for the BDSM community, finding women who were interested in bondage and dominance. However, his undoing was that his name continuously came up on missing person cases. When police finally got enough for a search warrant, they located 5 oil drums containing the remains of 5 women. In 2002, he was convicted of 3 of these murders and is currently on death row in Kansas. Pedro Lopez, or the Monster of the Andes, was thrust onto the streets of Colombia at the age of 8 when he was physically and sexually abused. Eventually jailed for stealing at 18, he began his murderous reign by killing inmates which he later claimed had sexually abused him. When he was released, he moved to Peru and began to kill girls aged between 9 and 12 years old. During this time, he was caught by an indigenous tribe. They were ready to execute him, however, were convinced by a Christian missionary to hand him over to police. But once he was handed over, he was quickly released without charge. After this, he made his way to Ecuador and began killing again. A local flash flood would unearth a mass grave containing around 50 children. Lopez was arrested and convicted of 110 murders. He was sentenced to the maximum allowed by Ecuadorian law, which was just 16 years. However, incredibly and ridiculously, he was released after only 14 years for good behaviour. After this, he was extradited to Colombia to face charges, but was declared insane and sent to the psychiatric wing of a hospital. After just 3 years there, staff declared him sane and released him on bail. To no one's surprise, he skipped bail and has been on the run since 1998. His current whereabouts are unknown. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Make sure you hit subscribe and turn on notifications to be the first to know when new episodes are released.